The night shift at the Galactic Embassy was always quiet. Long halls made of silver glass reflected the glow of distant stars. Every wall hummed softly with power from machines that humans could barely understand. Among the guards and scientists of many worlds, one human man moved slowly with a mop in his hand. His name was Milo. Milo was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a janitor, the kind of worker most people did not notice. Yet he took pride in his work. Each night he cleaned the great embassy floors until they shone like mirrors. He believed that even small jobs mattered when done with care. He worked here to earn enough for his young son, Leo, who stayed in the maintenance quarters during the night. Milo had come from Earth 5 years ago when jobs were scarce and humans were new to the Galactic Union. Other species still thought of humans as simple or primitive. Some even laughed at the idea of a human working inside the embassy. But Milo ignored those looks. He focused on his work, because he knew that his son depended on him. When the great clock above the central dome struck the 10th hour, Milo was finishing his cleaning near the Hall of Representatives. The hall was massive and quiet, filled with glass pillars that rose up into the clouds. As he wiped the last streaks from the floor, he heard a sound that did not belong there. It was soft at first, like a whimper. Then came a muffled sob. Milo paused, looking around. The embassy's security drones glided past him, scanning the area with their red sensors, but they did not react. That meant whoever was crying was not considered a threat. Still, the sound tugged at Milo's heart. He followed the quiet sobs to a small door near the observation chamber. It was half open. A faint light came through the gap and the sound of crying grew clearer. Milo hesitated for a moment. Entering a restricted area without permission could cost him his job. But he could not ignore a child in distress. He pushed the door gently. Inside was a small chamber filled with golden light. The air shimmered as if dust floated in slow motion. At the center of the room sat a child on the floor, her small shoulders shaking. She was unlike any child Milo had ever seen. Her hair was pale silver and seemed to glow softly. Her eyes, though half hidden behind her hands, shone faint violet like moonlight on water. Her skin was smooth and slightly luminous. Milo took a slow step forward. The girl did not look up. She held a small sphere in her hands, a toy perhaps that blinked weakly. "Hey," Milo said in a gentle voice. "Are you lost?" The girl gasped and turned toward him. For a moment her eyes widened in fear, then confusion. She spoke words he did not understand, a soft melody in another language. Milo raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said slowly. "I work here. My name's Milo." The girl did not reply. She looked down again and wiped her eyes. Milo stepped closer and saw the sphere in her hands was cracked. Whatever power it had was fading. He guessed it was important to her. "Did your toy break?" he asked softly. "I can fix small things sometimes." She shook her head, pressing the sphere close to her chest. Her tears glistened in the golden light. Milo's heart ached. He had seen Leo cry like that once when he lost his favorite toy back on Earth. No translator device was working here, and Milo had no idea who she was. But he did not need words to see that she was sad and alone. He looked around the room for something that could cheer her up. Nothing. The walls were smooth metal and glass, the floor spotless. His cleaning tools leaned against the corner, and then he remembered something in his pocket. Milo reached inside his uniform and pulled out a small plastic bubble wand. It was Leo's favorite toy. Sometimes when Leo could not sleep, Milo blew bubbles for him until he laughed. The wand was old, its handle scratched, but it still worked. He smiled at the girl. "Want to see something fun?" She looked up with a curious blink. Milo dipped the wand into the small container of bubble liquid he always carried, then blew gently. A perfect bubble floated out, shining with colors of blue and gold. The girl's eyes widened as it drifted in front of her, reflecting her face like a tiny world. Another bubble followed, then another. Soon the room was full of floating spheres, catching the golden light and scattering it like rainbows. The girl gasped, her lips parting in surprise. She reached out a small hand to touch one. It popped softly, leaving a trace of water on her fingers. Milo smiled wider. "See, no need to cry now. These ones never break for long. You can always make more." The girl tilted her head, still silent but now smiling faintly. Her tears had stopped. She watched each bubble rise, float, and disappear. The broken sphere in her hands dimmed, yet she no longer looked at it with sorrow. Instead, she laughed quietly, a soft musical sound that filled the room like a bell. For a few moments, they simply played. Milo made large bubbles, tiny ones, and even linked two together. The girl clapped her hands, trying to catch them. Her laughter echoed through the small chamber, pure and happy. Milo's chest felt lighter. He had no idea who she was, but seeing her smile was worth every risk. Then suddenly, the light above the door flashed blue. A faint hum filled the air. Milo froze. Someone was watching. The embassy's security systems had noticed the movement inside the chamber. He quickly stopped blowing bubbles and looked toward the door. The girl sensed his fear and stepped closer, tugging at his sleeve. She spoke a few hurried words, as if asking him to stay. Milo knelt down and shook his head gently. "I think we should go. Someone might be looking for you." Before she could answer, the door slid open. Two tall guards entered. Their armor gleamed silver, and their eyes glowed faint green behind visors. One spoke in a deep voice that the translator on Milo's wrist barely caught. "Human worker, stand aside. You are in a restricted royal chamber." Milo blinked. "Royal chamber?" His stomach tightened. That meant the child was not just anyone. He stepped back quickly. "I'm sorry," he said, bowing slightly. "I heard her crying. I didn't know." The guards ignored him and turned to the girl. They spoke in her language, gentle but firm. The girl nodded reluctantly and handed them the cracked sphere. Before leaving, she turned back toward Milo. Her eyes met his, filled with something like gratitude. Then the guards led her away. The door closed with a soft hiss. Milo stood there in silence, his bubble wand still in hand. He let out a long breath. He expected the guards to arrest him or at least question him, but they said nothing else. Maybe they thought he was harmless. Maybe the girl had told them not to punish him. Either way, he was glad it ended peacefully. As he gathered his tools, he looked down at the floor. A few small soap bubbles still floated in the air, slowly bursting one by one. Their brief light reflected on the walls like tiny stars. He whispered to himself, "Who was she?" He didn't know that high above the embassy, deep inside a hidden control room, someone was watching. The chamber was filled with glowing screens. Dozens of holograms floated around a tall figure sitting on a raised seat. Her skin was the same pale silver as the girl's, her eyes deep violet and sharp with wisdom. She wore a crown made of energy crystal that shimmered with every movement. She was Empress Vishara, ruler of the Oralis Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. She had seen everything through the security feed. The human janitor entering the chamber, the bubbles floating, the laughter of her daughter, Princess Erin, and the simple kindness that had calmed the child more than all the royal healers. Her advisors stood nearby, uneasy. One spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, shall we have the human removed from service? He trespassed inside the royal quarters." The Empress did not answer at once. Her eyes remained on the image of Milo bowing awkwardly as he packed his mop and bucket. She could see how tired he looked, how worn his uniform was, yet his face showed gentle strength. "No," she said finally. "Do nothing. Continue to observe him." The advisor hesitated. "But Majesty, he is a human," the Empress finished. "Yes, and yet he did what none of our own could. He brought peace to the princess's heart. I wish to know why." The advisors bowed and left, leaving the Empress alone. She leaned back, thoughtful. The humans were new to the galactic stage, often dismissed as weak or emotional. But this man's small act had reached her child in a way all their wisdom had failed to do. She turned her gaze toward the stars outside the window. Perhaps there is more to these humans than we think. Meanwhile, Milo finished his shift and returned to the maintenance quarters. Leo was asleep, his small body curled up in a blanket. Milo smiled and brushed a strand of hair from the boy's forehead. He sat on the edge of the bunk, still holding the bubble wand. He thought about the silver-haired child, her laughter, and the strange room glowing with golden light. Whoever she was, he hoped she was safe. He had no idea that his simple kindness had already reached the eyes of an empress. Outside the window of the maintenance quarters, the night sky shimmered with passing ships. Somewhere among them, royal vessels waited in silence. The stars reflected softly in the thin film of soap on the bubble wand, forming tiny worlds that drifted and vanished. Milo whispered to himself before sleeping, "Tomorrow will be another night of work. Maybe I'll bring more bubbles. They always make things brighter." He lay down beside his son, unaware that the quiet life he knew was about to change forever. The galaxy had noticed the humble janitor from Earth, and soon both he and Leo. The next morning began like any other for Milo. The sun over Earth shone faintly through the thick energy shields of the Galactic Embassy, spreading soft blue light into the lower maintenance rooms. Milo stretched his arms, rubbed his eyes, and looked at his sleeping son. Leo's small face looked peaceful, his hands curled under his chin. Milo smiled. He never woke Leo too early. His son always stayed up late waiting for him to return from the night shift, asking endless questions about the aliens he had seen. Milo would tell him gentle stories, changing the strange creatures into heroes or funny characters to make him laugh. That morning, however, Milo's mind was not at peace. He kept remembering the silver-haired child from the night before. Her laughter had been bright and pure like music. He wondered who she really was and if she was safe. He knew she was someone important because of the guards in the Golden Room, but he never imagined how important. As he put on his worn work uniform and packed his cleaning kit, a small feeling of worry grew in his chest. What if someone reported him for being in a restricted area? He might lose his job. He could not let that happen. Leo needed him. He brushed the worry aside and went to the cafeteria for his morning meal. The place was mostly empty at that hour. A few other workers from different worlds sat at their tables. A tall being with blue scales nodded to him. Milo gave a polite nod back. When he took his tray of food, he heard two security officers talking near the door. Their voices were low, but Milo caught a few words. Royal ship arrived last night. The Empress herself is here. They say the princess was upset. Something about a human worker. Milo froze for a moment, his spoon halfway to his mouth. The Empress? The word carried weight even among humans. Everyone knew about the Oralis Empire. Their ships filled the skies with silver light. Their technology could reshape matter and bend energy. The Empress Vashara was said to be wise but strict. He tried to eat but could not taste anything. His mind raced. Was the girl he helped really the princess of that empire? If the Empress found out he entered the royal chamber without permission, he would surely be punished. Still, part of him smiled quietly. If that little girl was a princess, then she was a kind one. She had laughed so freely at the bubbles. Maybe royalty were not so different after all. That afternoon, Milo returned to his duties. The supervisor, a short alien with green skin named Relk, stopped him in the hallway. "Milo, you are to clean the East Wing today," Relk said in his usual sharp tone. "Be careful. The royal delegation is moving through the halls. Stay out of their way." "Yes, sir," Milo said, trying to sound calm. As he walked away, he noticed the increased security. Silver-armored guards lined the corridors, and drones hovered in silent rows near the ceiling. Even the air felt heavy, filled with tension. Everyone seemed to know the Empress was somewhere inside the building. Milo kept his eyes down and focused on his work. He wiped the long windows, polished the silver floors, and cleaned the railings. He had done this many times, but today his hands felt stiff. Each time a group of royal attendants passed by, he paused and stepped aside. Unseen by him, tiny cameras hidden in the corners of the ceiling followed his every move. Inside the command chamber of the royal ship orbiting above Earth, the Empress watched in silence. Vashara sat in her tall crystal chair, her expression calm and thoughtful. Around her, holographic screens displayed various angles of the embassy's halls. On one of them, she saw Milo mopping the floor near the East Wing. His posture was humble, his movements steady. "Has he spoken of last night?" she asked without looking at her attendants. A tall figure beside her bowed slightly. "No, Your Majesty. He told no one. Our observers say he continued his routine without complaint." The Empress nodded slowly. "Interesting. Fear did not make him flee, nor pride make him boast. Such balance is rare." Another advisor stepped forward. "Majesty, permission to speak freely." "Granted," said the Empress. "Humans are unpredictable. Their actions may seem kind, but they lack discipline. This one could be dangerous if left unwatched." Vashara's eyes shifted toward the advisor, calm yet sharp. "Dangerous? He comforted my child when none of our healers or counselors could. If that is danger, perhaps the galaxy needs more of it." The advisor bowed deeply, ashamed of his words. The Empress turned her gaze back to the screen. She saw Milo pause to help an older worker lift a heavy box, smiling faintly as he did so. She saw how he spoke kindly to everyone, regardless of rank or species. There was a quiet dignity about him that no title could give. She thought of her daughter, Princess Erin, who was still recovering from her distress. The girl had been born with a strange sensitivity to emotions, something rare even among their kind. She could feel others' pain like her own. Crowds and noise often overwhelmed her. For months she had grown silent, refusing to speak to anyone but her caretakers. Yet after a single meeting with this human janitor, she had laughed again. Bashara's hand tightened on the armrest of her chair. "Have the guards been questioned?" "Yes, Majesty," one of the attendants said. They confirmed that the human did not harm the princess. He only spoke softly and produced spheres of liquid that floated in the air. "Bubbles," the Empress said softly. "A simple earth toy." She leaned back and closed her eyes. In her long life she had seen endless inventions and machines. She had seen weapons that could shatter moons and engines that could fold time. Yet none of those creations had ever made her child smile. Only this fragile toy had done so. Meanwhile, down below, Milo continued working. The afternoon passed slowly. When he finished cleaning the east wing, he went to the storage room to refill his cleaning liquid. The door opened with a hiss and he almost dropped his bucket when he saw someone waiting inside. It was one of the royal guards, the same kind of armor he had seen last night. "Milo of Earth?" The guard said in a firm voice. Milo nodded nervously. "Yes, that's me. The Empress requests your presence." Milo's heart skipped a beat. "The Empress?" "Yes, you are to come immediately." He wanted to refuse, to say he was only a janitor, but the guard's tone left no space for argument. Milo quickly cleaned his hands and followed. They led him through corridors he had never been in before. The walls changed from silver glass to living crystal that pulsed with faint light. Guards lined every passage. Finally, they reached a large hall with a wide window showing the earth far below. A transport pod waited at the end. "In here," the guard said. Milo stepped inside. The door closed and the pod rose smoothly into the air. Through the window he saw the embassy shrinking below him as the blue sky turned dark. Moments later, the stars appeared. Ahead of him, a massive ship floated in orbit. It was shaped like a silver crescent with thousands of lights glowing across its surface. The pod entered the ship's docking bay. The doors opened, and two more guards led him down a long corridor into a chamber filled with light. The floor was white crystal, and at the far end sat the Empress herself. Milo had never seen anyone like her. She was tall, graceful, and her presence filled the entire room. Her eyes shone like twin stars, calm yet powerful. He felt small, standing before her in his simple janitor uniform, still holding his cleaning cap in his hands. He bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I am sorry if I have done anything wrong. I did not mean to enter that room last night. I only heard a child crying." The Empress studied him for a long moment. The silence was heavy but not hostile. Finally, she spoke in a clear voice. "You comforted my daughter," she said. "You did not know who she was, yet you helped her." "Why?" Milo looked up slowly. "Because she was crying. That's all. I have a son. When he cries, I do what I can to make him smile. It didn't matter who she was. She was just a child who needed someone to care." The Empress leaned slightly forward. "You risked punishment for that. You entered a forbidden chamber." Milo nodded. "Yes, but I couldn't walk away. Some things are more important than rules." The advisors standing behind the Empress whispered to each other, but she raised her hand for silence. Her gaze softened. "You used a simple toy," she said. "Bubbles, I believe. Why did you carry such a thing?" Milo smiled faintly. "For my boy. When he feels scared or lonely, bubbles always help. I guess they remind him that beauty can exist even in small things. Maybe it's the same for others too." For a moment, the mighty Empress of the Oralis Empire said nothing. Then, to the shock of her attendants, she smiled. A gentle, genuine smile. "I see," she said quietly. "You may return to your duties, Milo of Earth. But from now on, you and your son will be guests of the Oralis Embassy." "My daughter wishes to see you again." Milo blinked in surprise. "Me, a guest?" "Yes, your kindness has touched my family. You have shown that even in a galaxy of power, small hearts still hold the greatest strength." The guard stepped aside. Milo bowed again, confused but grateful. As he left, he felt a strange warmth in his chest. Somewhere deep inside, he sensed that his life had just changed forever. Back in the royal chamber, when the doors closed behind him, the Empress looked at her daughter's picture on the screen, the little princess smiling as she played with her broken sphere. "Perhaps," she whispered, The humans are not as small as the stars make them seem. Days passed after Milo's strange meeting with the Empress. His life seemed almost normal again, but deep down he knew nothing was the same. The guards now greeted him politely when he passed. The supervisor, Relk, who once spoke to him with sharp words, now acted careful and respectful. Even the other workers looked at him differently, whispering when he walked by. Milo did not understand all of it. He was still the same janitor, still sweeping floors and polishing glass. He did not think of himself as special. He only knew that he had done what anyone with a heart would have done. He had comforted a child who was sad. Leo, his son, noticed the change too. "Dad," Leo said one evening while they shared a simple meal in their small quarters, "why are the guards smiling at you now?" "They never used to do that," Milo laughed softly. "Maybe they just like clean floors." Leo looked doubtful but smiled anyway. "You always make things better, Dad." That night, as they were getting ready to sleep, a soft sound came from the corridor outside. It was like the hum of air, but smoother. Milo opened the door and saw a small floating drone glowing with white light. It projected a message in the air. A gentle voice spoke. "Milo of Earth? By order of the Oralis Empress, you and your son are invited to the royal garden at the embassy tomorrow during the first light cycle. Attendance is requested." Then the drone vanished. Milo stood frozen for a moment, blinking in surprise. "The royal garden?" he murmured. He had never been allowed near that place. It was reserved for nobles and high-ranking officials. Leo looked up at him, wide-eyed. "Are we in trouble?" Milo smiled nervously. "I don't think so. I think it's an invitation." The next morning, both father and son prepared early. Milo wore his cleanest uniform, the one without patches. Leo wore a small jacket that Milo had repaired many times. They walked through the grand corridors of the embassy, guided by 2 guards. Every step echoed softly on the shining floor. When they reached the garden dome, Milo stopped to stare. He had never seen anything like it. The dome was filled with trees that glowed with gentle blue leaves. Strange flowers floated in the air, spinning slowly in a soft breeze. The air smelled sweet, almost like honey. Streams of silver water curved through the garden, reflecting the stars above. At the center of the garden stood a small figure. She had silver hair and violet eyes. It was the same child from that night, the princess. She was holding a round sphere, repaired and glowing brightly now. When she saw Milo and Leo, she smiled wide and waved. Milo felt relief wash over him. She looked healthy and happy. He and Leo walked closer. "Hello again," Milo said gently. "I'm glad to see you smiling." The princess tilted her head, her eyes shining. She spoke a few words in her own language, then tapped a small crystal hanging around her neck. A soft tone filled the air, and suddenly her words became clear through a translator field. "Hello, Milo," she said in careful words. Her voice was musical but kind. "I wanted to see you again." "You made bubbles." Milo chuckled. "Yes, I did." "I can show you more if you want." The princess nodded eagerly. "Please," Milo turned to Leo. "You have the wand?" Leo grinned and pulled out the same small plastic bubble wand from his pocket. The boy dipped it in the soap liquid Milo had mixed earlier and blew softly. Dozens of bubbles floated out, glowing in the garden's light. The princess gasped with joy. She reached out her hands, laughing as the bubbles drifted around her. Leo laughed too, chasing them. The 2 children began to play together, running between the glowing trees and trying to catch the floating spheres. Their laughter echoed through the dome like music. Milo stood nearby, smiling as he watched them. For the first time since he arrived on the alien world, he felt truly peaceful. Then he heard a soft voice behind him. They seemed to understand each other without words. Milo turned quickly. Standing a short distance away was the Empress herself. Her presence filled the garden, yet her expression was calm and gentle. She was not dressed in royal armor, but in a simple flowing robe of silver cloth. Milo bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," the Empress raised a hand. "You may relax, Milo. Today you are here as a guest, not a servant." Milo straightened, still nervous. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I didn't know you would be here. I came to watch my daughter," she said softly. "She has not smiled like this in a long time." They both turned their eyes toward the children. The princess and Leo were now kneeling beside the stream, using bubbles to make small shapes that drifted over the water. The Empress's eyes softened as she watched. Before you met her, she was quiet and withdrawn. She could not speak to others without fear. Our doctors and scholars tried everything, but nothing helped. Yet you, a simple man from Earth, made her laugh with soap and air. Tell me, how do you understand children so easily? Milo smiled faintly. I don't think I understand them. I just listen. Kids don't need big things, Your Majesty. They just need someone to care and give them a reason to smile. The Empress studied him for a long moment. You make it sound simple. It is simple, Milo said. But simple things are often forgotten when people grow powerful. The Empress looked at him with quiet surprise. Then a soft smile touched her lips. You speak with wisdom, Milo of Earth. Perhaps your kind is not as young as many believe. Milo said nothing. He did not feel wise. He was just speaking from his heart. The Empress took a few steps closer to the stream, her long robe gliding over the grass. The princess ran to her mother, holding Leo's hand. Mother, she said excitedly, Leo showed me how to make two bubbles stick together. Look. She dipped the wand again and blew carefully. Two bubbles merged, forming a glowing shape that shimmered in the air. The Empress watched with wonder, a small laugh escaping her lips. It is beautiful, she said softly. You have done well, Aaron. The princess beamed.
Milo said bubbles are like stars.
They shine, then they fade, but there are always more. The Empress turned to Milo. You said that? Milo shrugged lightly. Something like that. My son once asked why stars fall. I told him not to be sad because more will rise again. The Empress nodded thoughtfully. There is a lesson in that. They spent the rest of the morning in quiet peace. The children played while Milo and the Empress spoke of simple things. Earth's blue oceans, Oralis's glowing forests, and the strange ways two distant worlds could still share the same feelings. Before they left, the Empress turned to Milo and said, My daughter learns better from you than from all her teachers. I wish for her to spend more time with you and your son. If you agree, you will stay as guests of the royal household for a while. Milo was speechless. Your Majesty, I'm just a janitor. I don't belong in a palace, the Empress smiled kindly. Titles do not define worth. Sometimes the smallest candle gives the brightest light. Please consider my offer. Milo looked at Leo, who was laughing with the princess near the water. He saw the happiness on both their faces. He thought of the long nights of work, the struggles on Earth, and the quiet dreams he had for his son. Perhaps this was a chance for something new, he bowed. If it helps your daughter and if my son is safe, then yes, we'll stay. The Empress's smile grew warm. Then it is settled. That evening, Milo and Leo were moved to guest quarters aboard the royal ship orbiting Earth. The rooms were far beyond anything Milo had ever seen. The walls glowed softly with starlight, and the beds were as soft as clouds. Leo ran around the room in amazement. Dad, is this really for us? Milo nodded, smiling. I guess it is. Later that night, after Leo had fallen asleep, Milo stood by the wide window looking out at Earth. The planet looked small from here, wrapped in blue and white. He thought about how strange life could be, how a simple act of kindness could carry someone so far from home. In another part of the ship, the Empress and the princess stood together on a balcony. The princess held a small bubble wand given to her by Leo. She blew a bubble that floated gently into the night air. Mother, she said softly. Why do bubbles disappear? The Empress smiled. Because they are light and free. They rise until they meet the stars, but even when they vanish, they leave behind beauty. The princess nodded thoughtfully. Then I will make more tomorrow. The Empress looked out into the deep space, her eyes shining. Yes, my little one. There will always be more. As the bubble drifted upward, the reflection of Earth shimmered inside it for a brief moment before it vanished into the stars. Milo, looking from his own window, saw a faint glow in the sky and smiled without knowing why. Somewhere above, the princess was smiling too. He whispered quietly, Good night, little one. May your dreams be bright. And so among the stars, a bond grew between a human janitor, his son, and an alien princess. A bond built not on power or wealth, but on simple kindness and shared laughter. What none of them knew was that their friendship would soon change more than their own lives. The Empress herself had begun to see humans differently, and whispers of this change were already spreading across the galaxy. But for now, peace rested over the royal ship. The princess slept with her bubble wand beside her. Leo dreamed of stars and glowing gardens, and Milo, the janitor who once swept forgotten halls, now rested with gratitude in his heart, unaware that destiny was already moving quietly toward him.
The next morning aboard the royal ship began in soft quiet. Milo awoke to the gentle hum of the vessel's engines and the soft glow of the observation dome above their guest quarters. Light from distant stars spilled into the room, reflecting off the polished walls. Beside him, Leo stirred and stretched, his small eyes blinking open with curiosity. "Dad," Leo said, pointing to the window, "look at all the stars. They're so close. Can we touch them?" Milo smiled, brushing Leo's hair back from his forehead. "Not yet, Leo, but we can get close enough to see them clearly. And maybe one day we'll travel among them." Leo grinned, jumping from the bed to explore the room. His excitement reminded Milo of the first time he had held his son, small and fragile, and had promised to always protect him. Now, in this strange and magnificent place, Milo felt that promise more important than ever. After a simple meal, a soft chime echoed through the room. A small floating drone hovered in, projecting a glowing message. "Milo and Leo, your presence is requested in the Empress's personal chambers. Princess Erin wishes to meet you there." Milo and Leo exchanged surprised glances. "Personal chambers?" Milo whispered to his son. He felt a mix of awe and nervousness. "It seems the princess wants to spend time with us today." They followed the drone through the polished corridors of the ship. Each passageway shimmered with holographic lights, reflecting Milo's own reflection and that of his son. The walls were covered with softly glowing patterns of stars and planets, constantly shifting as if the ship itself were alive. Milo had never imagined such beauty in all his life on Earth. When they arrived, the door opened silently, revealing a large chamber bathed in soft golden light. At the center of the room sat Princess Erin, her silver hair glowing in the light. She held a small bubble wand, identical to the one Leo carried, and her violet eyes shone with excitement. "Milo, Leo," she said in careful words through the translator field, "I am glad you came. I want to learn more from you." Milo bowed slightly. "It is my honor, Princess. I just hope I can help." The princess smiled brightly. "You already helped me. Now, I want to know more about your world and how to make more bubbles." Milo laughed quietly. "Then let's start with the simple things first. Bubbles are not just for play. They teach patience. You must blow softly and watch carefully. Sometimes they break, sometimes they float higher than you expect. But the joy is in trying." The princess nodded seriously, her small hands moving carefully as she practiced. Milo and Leo watched her, gently correcting her movements and encouraging her. Each bubble they created floated like tiny worlds of light, catching the golden glow of the chamber. As the morning passed, the Empress entered quietly, standing at the edge of the room. She observed them with calm eyes, her expression unreadable. Milo did not notice her at first, focused entirely on helping the princess. "You are very patient," the Empress said softly. "I did not think anyone could teach my daughter with such care." Milo straightened, bowing slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only know how to listen and guide gently. That is all." The Empress approached closer. "Your words and actions are different from anything we have seen. You're kind. You act from heart rather than pride or duty. It is rare among our people." Milo felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never thought of himself as special, only as someone doing his job. Yet here, before the ruler of one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, his simple actions were seen as extraordinary. The princess laughed, clapping her hands as a large bubble drifted past her face. "Look, it floated over the stream." Milo and Leo smiled, watching the bubble shimmer. The princess carefully guided it with her hands, making it spin and bounce over the water that ran through the chamber floor. The water glowed faintly, reflecting the lights above, creating small rainbows across the surface. The Empress watched quietly. Her violet eyes softened as she observed the children. "You see, Milo," she said after a pause, "it is not the size of the act, but the intention behind it. Your small gestures carry power because they come from care, not command." Milo nodded humbly. "I do not think about power. I only try to do what is right for the children I care for. That is all." The Empress smiled faintly, walking to the edge of the chamber. She gestured toward a console. Milo, the Orless Empire has studied humans for many cycles. They are young and unpredictable, yet they possess a unique resilience. You have shown me that even the smallest human heart can affect a royal life. I wish for you to teach my daughter more, and in return, we will ensure your safety and your son's comfort while here. Milo felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. I am not a teacher, Your Majesty. I only know how to help the princess feel joy. That is enough, the Empress said firmly. Joy is rare in our world, yet you bring it freely. That is worth more than any lesson in science, strategy, or combat. Your humanity is a gift we cannot ignore. Milo glanced at Leo. His son's eyes were wide with wonder, absorbing every detail of the magnificent chamber. Milo felt a surge of gratitude. Here, for the first time, he felt that his life struggles on Earth, his long nights cleaning floors, his small acts of care for Leo, all of it mattered. Somehow, it had led him to this moment. A moment that could change his son's future, and the future of an empire. The princess tugged at Milo's sleeve. Can we go outside? She asked, pointing toward a balcony overlooking the ship's observation deck. Milo nodded, lifting Leo's hand in his. They followed her across the chamber. The balcony door slid open silently, revealing a vast panorama of space. Stars twinkled in every direction. The Earth hung below, a shining blue gem. Other ships floated quietly in orbit, some sleek and silver, others angular and dark. The princess took a deep breath. It is beautiful, she whispered. I can see the world from here, Milo smiled. Yes, it is. From here you can see many things at once, but you must remember to care for what is small too. Even a bubble can teach you lessons. The princess nodded, her violet eyes reflecting the distant stars. She dipped her wand into the soap solution she had carried with her and blew carefully. A perfect bubble drifted upward, glowing faintly against the black of space. It lingered for a moment, then floated away. The princess laughed softly, watching it disappear. The Empress observed quietly, her hands folded. She spoke softly, almost to herself. Perhaps we have much to learn from the humans. Their hearts are small, but their light is strong. As the day progressed, Milo and Leo guided the princess through more lessons. They taught her how to make bubbles of different sizes and shapes, how to be patient when they popped, and how to enjoy the process rather than just the result. With each small bubble, the princess grew calmer, more confident. She laughed, spoke freely, and even taught Leo a few tricks she discovered herself. Milo watched, amazed at the transformation. The child who had once trembled and clung to her broken sphere was now playful and joyful. He understood why the Empress had been so quiet in her admiration. Sometimes it was impossible to explain the power of kindness. By evening, the Empress spoke to Milo again. You have done more than teach bubbles. You have taught patience, courage, and care. These lessons cannot be measured in credits or stars. They are the true treasures of life. Milo bowed his head. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only hope I can continue to help. The Empress nodded. You will. The princess wishes it, and I wish for you to stay as our guest until you decide it is time to return to your world. Milo glanced at Leo, who was now sitting beside the princess, showing her how to form tiny bubble chains. The children's laughter echoed softly through the observation deck. Milo felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was more than he had ever hoped for, more than any salary, title, or recognition. He had brought happiness where it had been lost. The Empress watched him carefully, a faint smile on her lips. Milo, she said, sometimes the smallest lights shine the brightest in the darkness. You are such a light. Never forget that. Milo nodded silently. I will remember, Your Majesty. As night fell across the orbiting ship, the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Milo returned to the guest quarters with Leo, feeling a deep sense of peace. Outside, Princess Erin waved from the balcony. Her bubble wand raised as she sent one last glowing sphere into the void of space. Milo whispered quietly to himself. Tomorrow, we will make more. He settled beside Leo. Listening to the quiet hum of the ship, somewhere, the princess slept peacefully, her heart lighter than it had been in many cycles. and the Empress, sitting in her chamber, gazed at the stars and thought about the small human who had taught her daughter to smile again, in a galaxy of power. Wars and endless ambition, a single act of kindness, a simple bubble had created a bond stronger than any fleet or weapon. And this was only the beginning. The sun of the distant planet shone softly through the transparent walls of the royal ship. Milo and Leo awoke to the gentle hum of the vessel and the familiar shimmer of stars beyond the dome. Today was a special day. Milo could feel it in his chest when he opened the door to the guest quarters. He found Princess Erin waiting outside, a small bag in her hands. Her silver hair glimmered in the light, and her violet eyes sparkled with excitement. She waved shyly, then held up the bag. "Milo, Leo," she said through the translator. "I brought something for you." Milo raised an eyebrow, curious. "For us?" The princess nodded eagerly. She reached into the bag and pulled out 3 small bubble wands, each with a different color and pattern. Milo smiled faintly. Even the simplest toys could bring joy when given with thought. "These are for you," she said, handing one to Milo and one to Leo, "so we can make bubbles together again." Leo's eyes widened. "Wow. Thank you, Princess." Milo nodded, bowing slightly. "This is very kind of you." "Thank you." The 3 of them walked to the observation deck, where the wide view of the galaxy stretched endlessly before them. The stars sparkled like diamonds scattered across black velvet, and distant planets shone faintly in the background. Milo dipped his wand into the soap solution and blew gently. A stream of perfect bubbles floated upward, catching the light of the stars and creating tiny reflections. Princess Erin clapped her hands, laughing. Leo joined her, chasing the bubbles as they drifted slowly in the soft air currents. Milo watched them, his heart warm. He realized something that he had not understood before, that joy could be a bridge between worlds. Even in a galaxy filled with differences, power, and uncertainty. The Empress appeared quietly at the edge of the deck, her flowing silver robe shimmering in the starlight. She observed them silently for a moment, a faint smile on her lips. Then she spoke softly. "You have taught my daughter more than I imagined possible," she said, her eyes fixed on Milo. "Not with magic or lessons, but with care and patience." "You remind me of what is important," Milo bowed. "Your Majesty, I only did what I would for my own child. I did not think it would teach anyone else." The Empress stepped closer. "That is what makes it extraordinary. True strength is shown not by power, but by heart. Your humanity has lessons we need to understand." Milo felt a lump in his throat. He was just a janitor, yet here he was, teaching an Empress and her daughter about kindness and patience. "I do not feel strong," he said quietly. "I just try to help." "Helping is the greatest strength of all," the Empress replied. "It is the reason life endures. You remind me that even in the vastness of space, the smallest act of care can change worlds." Princess Erin giggled, holding a bubble wand above her head. "Let me show you a new trick." She dipped her wand carefully, blew a large bubble, and then another smaller one that attached to the first. The 2 floated together, forming a chain of light. Milo and Leo tried to follow her movements, laughing when the bubbles broke unexpectedly. "See?" Erin said, pointing to the floating chain. "It is like our hearts. When we care for each other, we stay connected." Milo smiled, feeling the truth in her words. He looked at Leo, who nodded in understanding. The children's laughter echoed through the observation deck, pure and full of energy. After a while, the Empress spoke again. "Milo, I wish to show you something." She gestured toward a large window in the center of the deck. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared, glowing softly in the air. Stars, planets, and ships were represented with bright symbols. "This is our empire," she said. "It stretches far and wide. We rule with laws and strength. Yet despite all our knowledge, there are things we cannot control: hearts, feelings, and courage. You have shown me that these are just as important as fleets or armies." Milo studied the holographic map, feeling a strange sense of awe. He had never imagined the scale of the galaxy, nor the responsibilities carried by someone like the Empress. "Your Majesty," he said, It is a big job, but the smallest things can make a difference. Even a bubble can teach patience or joy. The Empress nodded, her eyes thoughtful. Exactly. Sometimes I forget that in my role, I am responsible not only for laws and strategy, but for the hearts of my people. You remind me to look beyond power and see the lives we protect. The children had now begun to blow bubbles into the holographic map, watching the glowing spheres float past stars and planets. Milo laughed quietly. Even amid the power and knowledge of the Empire, simple joy could exist anywhere. Later, the Empress led Milo and Leo to a quiet chamber filled with books and soft light. She handed Milo a small crystal tablet. "This will allow you to communicate with us whenever you need guidance or help," she explained. "Consider it a bridge between your world and ours. You have earned the trust of this empire through your actions, and that trust is valuable." Milo took the tablet carefully. "I will honor that, Your Majesty. I promise to use it wisely." "You have already used what is most important," the Empress said. "Your heart. Never forget that it is stronger than any weapon or machine." The day passed with lessons and laughter. Princess Erin grew more confident, showing Milo and Leo how she could make complex bubble shapes. Milo realized that these simple exercises were teaching patience, observation, and joy, lessons that extended beyond bubbles into life itself. As the stars outside the observation deck began to shine more brightly, signaling the approach of evening, the Empress spoke one last time. "Milo, I wish for you to stay here for as long as you and your son desire. The princess benefits from your guidance, and you have brought something rare to this empire, hope." Milo felt a deep sense of gratitude. "Your Majesty, I do not know what to say. I am honored, but I only hope I can continue to help her." "You have already done more than enough," the Empress replied. "Your simple acts carry greater weight than you know. Remember, even small humans can shine brighter than the largest stars when guided by care and love." Milo looked at Leo, who was now resting beside Princess Erin, their small hands touching in friendship. The bond formed between them was stronger than anything he had ever imagined. He realized that the Empire, vast and powerful as it was, now had a new strength, one born from compassion and connection. That night, Milo and Leo returned to their quarters, carrying a quiet sense of peace. The stars outside twinkled endlessly, each one a reminder of how vast the galaxy was, and how small acts could ripple across it. Milo sat beside Leo, brushing the boy's hair. "You see, Leo," he said softly, "sometimes the smallest things matter the most. A kind word, a gentle hand, a bubble, they can change someone's heart more than the strongest armies." Leo smiled sleepily. "I understand, Dad. I want to be like you when I grow up." Milo hugged him tightly. "You already are, Leo. You already are." As they drifted to sleep, the Empress watched quietly from her chamber, thinking about the strange human who had taught her daughter to laugh and her empire to see that the smallest hearts can carry the brightest light. Somewhere, Princess Erin lay in her bed, a small bubble wand beside her, dreaming of stars and laughter. She had learned that joy and care were not bound by species or power, and that even the simplest human could teach lessons that lasted a lifetime. Outside, the galaxy spread endlessly, filled with stars, planets, and countless mysteries. But on this small ship above Earth, the hearts of a janitor, his son, and a young princess shone brighter than any weapon or fleet. They had proven that humanity, in its simplest form, could leave a mark far greater than power, fear, or titles. And so, the janitor who once blew bubbles to calm a crying alien princess became more than a caretaker. He became a teacher, a friend, and a symbol of hope. The Empress, watching silently, realized that the lessons of one human heart could echo across the galaxy, reminding even the most powerful that kindness, patience, and care are the greatest forces in the universe. Milo closed his eyes, feeling the quiet hum of the ship beneath him. Leo slept peacefully beside him, and far above, Princess Erin dreamed of more bubbles, more laughter, and the simple, shining truth that small acts of love could illuminate even the darkest corners of space. The galaxy, vast and unending, had already begun to change because of them.